Good afternoon. My name is Barb Malara. I'm part of the team at Harvesting History. Harvesting History is an upstate New York heirloom horticultural company that specializes in heirloom seeds, heirloom flower bulbs, and heirloom vegetable and root sets. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, and that is potatoes. Yummy, yummy potatoes. But we're not going to teach you in this video how to plant them. We have several other videos either on YouTube or in production that can teach you how to do that. And I would refer you especially to our delightful Planting Potatoes in Tire Towers. But today we're going to talk a little bit about the history of the potato and also about the different varieties that Harvesting History offers. Let's begin with a little bit of history. Many of you may know that the potato originated along the western coast of South America. And it was brought by the Spanish explorers to Europe in the late 1400s and early 1500s. By the middle 1500s, it had made it to England and the rest of the British Isles. The potato, as many of you know, became the single most important vegetable in the diet of the Irish. The reason the potato became so important to the Irish is that it is one vegetable, one of the few vegetables that can actually provide all the nutrition a human being could need on a subsistence diet. And as we all realize, in those days, Ireland was a subsistence economy. Around the year 1845, a very unfortunate event happened. In that summer of 1845, it had been very wet, very rainy. And there were in a British harbor some American ships anchored that had in their holds potatoes. Some of those potatoes had a fungus that's called Phytophthora infestans. And during the night, a very unique fog drifted down over that harbor and then made its way into Ireland. Unfortunately, it carried with it the spores of Phytophthora infestans. Within 3 to 5 days, all of the potato crop in 1845 in Ireland turned to mush. And then what made it worse is, as the Irish realized they had lost their potato crop, they tilled it under into the soil, and that further spread the spores. For the next 7 years, there was basically nothing to eat in Ireland. Now, part of the reason for this was that all of the potatoes in Ireland at the time were of the same variety. And so the Phytophthora infestans had the same effect throughout the country. One of the most amazing and saddening statistics about the Great Potato Famine is that over the course of the next 7 years, from 1845 to 1852, more than 1 million people left Ireland or died, and most of them, in fact, died. The country lost 25% of its population in that period of time. It's the greatest human decimation of a single country in the history of mankind. That's the sad part about potatoes, but there is a happy ending to this story. Luther Burbank was so incredibly upset by the fact that this virus, this fungus rather, had come from the United States, that he spent a good part of his life trying to develop a potato that was resistant to this fungus. And in the end, he ended up being successful. Now, some of you may not know the name Luther Burbank, but he was one of the greatest seedsmen and seed developers this country, America, has ever seen. And in his efforts, he finally was successful. And he gifted to the people of Ireland a potato that was now Phytophthora infestans resistant. But also what we learned from that horrifying experience is that with no crop, should we rely on a single variety. We need to have multiple varieties and diversity in order to ensure that all of these crops stay healthy. So today we have, as you can see from this little basket, a huge variety of potatoes. One last fact that I want to call your attention to is that we largely have two different kinds of potatoes in this world. One are what we now call the standard potatoes, and then there is a variety called the fingerling. In fact, the fingerling is called the fingerling because it looks like a crooked finger. And the fingerlings are believed to be the oldest of the types of potatoes that we have today. The standard potato is more what you're used to. A large, round, baking, boiling, roasting potato. Now that I've inundated you with probably more history than you ever would care about when it comes to potatoes, let's talk some specific varieties. And let's begin with this lovely standard potato whose name is Maris Piper. Maris Piper is considered to be an English-Irish heirloom. It traces its roots to both England and to Ireland. It is a yellow-skinned, yellow-fleshed standard potato with a rich, buttery flavor. It's good for baking, it's also good for boiling, and it makes a great roasted potato. Now, let's move to a fingerling. This is a very special fingerling. Red thumb is probably the reddest of all the red-skinned fingerling potatoes, and the flesh is pink. In a mature red thumb potato, the flesh can be bright pink. As you can see from this baby seed potato, the flesh is more a very pale pink, but it will get redder as the potato matures. Now, let's go to a little scoundrel called La Rat. As you can probably guess, the name means the rat. And this is a French heirloom potato, much beloved by the French, and they've always thought that these little guys looked just like scurrying rats. Well, La Rat is a fingerling, a yellow-skinned, yellow-fleshed potato that makes a very good roasting potato, and along with the other fingerlings we discussed today is a very, very good storer. And now let's talk about this guy. If you query old-timer potato growers, many of them are going to tell you this is the best yellow-skinned, yellow-fleshed potato that we grow today. I know it's certainly delicious. I grow it every year. It's a standard potato that, when the potato is mature, creates a tuber that's about that big around. And these, of course, are seed potatoes, and so they're going to be much smaller. And they also could be used as new potatoes, and of course those are very small. The German butterball has been around for several decades and is a proven, reliable producer. So I highly recommend it, especially for novices in potato gardening, because it's a wonderful potato to start on. Okay, now don't get tired, because we still have plenty more potato varieties to discuss, and you need to know about every single one of these. Let's now move to Colorado Rose, which is another standard potato. It's one of the most beautiful and tasty red-skinned, yellow-fleshed standard potatoes. Again, when this potato is mature, it creates a tuber that's about that big around. It is an excellent baking and boiling potato, and also roasts well. Moving from Colorado Rose, let's go back to the fingerlings. This is, of all the fingerling potatoes that Harvesting History offers, the most popular. It's Austrian Crescent. It is a yellow-skinned, yellow-fleshed fingerling potato. These fingerlings get to be about twice the size of the one that I'm holding in my hand now, and the girth is about that big around. Very, very good for roasting, not so good for baking, not so good for boiling, but remember, the fingerlings are very good storers. So when all else is rotted away, your fingerlings will still be in good shape. And then let's talk about Purple Majesty. Many of you know All Blue. It's a wonderful purple-skinned, purple-fleshed potato. But I don't think many of you know about Purple Majesty. Of all the purple-skinned, purple-fleshed standard potatoes, this is the darkest. It has a delicious, earthy type of flavor. And the reason that there is the interest, other than the curiosity reason, for purple-skinned, purple-fleshed potatoes is that they are very high in antioxidants. This potato is not so good for boiling because as you boil it, the purple color leaches out of it. But it makes a great roasting potato and it makes a great baking potato. The purple will not fade when it is prepared using those two processes. Okay, let's go back to Europe and discuss this red-skinned, it's very, very pale red, red-skinned, yellow-fleshed potato. This old girl, Desiree, is the most popular red-skinned potato in Europe. It's used largely in all the ways you use a potato: boiling, baking, and roasting. It's a standard potato, and the mature potatoes, again, get to be about this size. The flesh itself is a golden yellow, very appetizing potato. Now, let's move to an old American favorite that most of us have never heard of. This is one that the old potato growers would keep secret because they believe this has extraordinarily good flavor. This is the standard potato, Nicola. So you can think of it as Nicola the potato as opposed to Ricola the cough drop. Well, this potato is a yellow-skinned, golden-fleshed potato. And if you compare it, its flesh is uniquely golden. Look at the color with the other yellow-skinned, yellow-fleshed. You can see how vividly gold this potato's flesh is. Nicola, it has a delicious flavor. The potatoes are more oblong and get to be about that size. And it's been a closely kept secret among potato growers because oftentimes the crop yield on this one isn't as great as, say, a German butterball. So they keep the Nicolas to themselves. And then let's talk about Mountain Rose. Mountain Rose is the reddest fleshed standard red-skinned potato that we have available today. And you can easily see, even in this immature seed potato, how incredibly red the flesh is. And it'll just get redder as the potato matures. Lovely flavor, good for baking, good for roasting, not as good for boiling because, again, the redness in the flesh will leach out. So finally, we're going to get to three exceptional potatoes, my favorites. The first is this extraordinary English heirloom called Rose Fin Apple. And as you can see, the skin is pinkish and the flesh is this bright yellow. Well, the reason it's called Rose Fin Apple is because this potato, the flesh, has the flavor, the subtle flavor of apple. It is an extraordinary potato. It is maybe, in my opinion, the best tasting potato when roasted. It can also be fried. But it doesn't do, it does okay baked, but who wants a baked potato that's the size of a finger? So the best thing to do with these is to roast them or to fry them, and understand, again, fingerlings store the best of all the potatoes, so this potato will last longer than your standard potatoes. And now let's move to Binchi. Binchi is remarkable because it is the most popular potato in all of Europe, and it has been that way for the better part of a century. Binchi is again a standard potato, yellow skinned, yellow fleshed, getting the size of most standard potatoes. The mature potato is about that big around. It is good for everything. It is good for baking. It is good for boiling. It is good for roasting. It is good for frying. And in fact, you are staring at the original French fried potato. That's what Binchi is all about. And finally, I often get asked, what's your favorite tomato, what's your favorite pepper, what's your favorite bean? And I don't really have favorites, but I do when it comes to potatoes. And this is my favorite. Let's begin by giving you the name. It's Purple Viking. It's a large standard potato. And then let's start with, I think this is the most beautiful potato I have ever seen. The skin is always this mottled bright purple with these brown or tan or cream blotches in them that makes it just an exciting thing to look at all by itself. And then you cut it open, and this potato has this remarkable creamy white flesh. It's actually considered to be a white-fleshed potato, but the whiteness is really a cream color. And there's a subtle sweetness to this potato that you have to taste. I can't describe it. Well, this potato gets to be very large, and it is a great baking potato. It is, I don't think, so good as a boiling potato, but it is an excellent roasting potato, and you can actually fry it. So if you want something incredibly unique in your potato garden this year, I would strongly suggest Purple Viking. And if you've never grown it and you do grow potatoes, put it on your bucket list, because I think once you've grown Purple Viking, you may never stop growing it again. I hope that you've enjoyed this discussion of the history of potatoes and a few of the varieties that are available today. At Harvesting History, www.harvestinghistory.com, we have all of these potatoes available for sale now. We sell them in 1 pound bags, and we actually do have a red, white, and blue collection that combines 3 of the varieties that you see here. If you have a garden and you grow vegetables, one of the things I think is essential, even more so than lettuce, are potatoes. And I hope someday, if you aren't already a potato grower, you will try. Again, go to our website. All of these are available in 1 pound bags, and it's www.harvesting-history.com. Have a good evening.